Hellish demons, my mom getting a little too frisky at family parties, and that time I saw my grandma without makeup. Netflix's The Deliverance will have you yelling at your TV saying,
"That the power of Christ compels you!"
In this video we'll be taking a look at the latest exorcist horror and the real-life story it's based on. Because when a film says it's inspired by true events and then an hour later you got a scene like this, you know this is a job for Pope Think Story. But before we begin, get your holy water out and like and subscribe. This might hurt more than Sunday school. The Deliverance follows Ebony Jackson and her family as they move into their new home in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The real story follows a woman named Latoya Ammons and her family and is actually set in Gary, Indiana. The Jacksons have fallen on hard times, and this is the third home they've moved into in the past year. Ebony's mother, Alberta, is dying of cancer. Her husband left to fight in Iraq after failing to gain custody of the kids, and a mounting pile of bills follows them wherever they go. To make matters worse, Child Protective Services has their eye on her, and they certainly won't be happy when they find out a demon has taken over their home. It's important to note that Ebony won't be winning any Mother of the Year awards. She's an alcoholic, child-abusing philanderist, making it difficult to really root for her. That being said, she isn't without her redeeming qualities. She secretly pays for her mother's chemo, beats up a bully who picks on her son, and gets her daughter that new phone she's always wanted even though it's way too expensive. This is a woman who genuinely loves her children even though she is terribly flawed. While there is an actual demon in this movie, the film explores the metaphorical demons of addiction and trauma. As a child, Ebony was abused by her mother, both physically and emotionally. Her mother even turned the other way while a man sexually abused her. It's never mentioned in the film, but this could have been her own father. So a picture begins to form on why Ebony acts the way she does as she becomes an active participant in this cycle of generational trauma. It's not long before the Jacksons move into their new home that they experience a series of weird occurrences. First are the appearance of flies around the basement, the smell of sulfur, and the youngest boy's obsession with chugging milk at 3 a.m. in the morning. This is Dre, and he becomes the target of this demon's possession. Dre starts talking to an imaginary friend named Trey, but there's a horrifying secret surrounding this supposed make-believe friend. Later in the film, Ebony confronts a mysterious woman named Bernice who had been stalking them outside their home.
"There's an evil spirit in your house."
Bernice tells Ebony of the tragedy that befell the family that lived in their house 20 years ago. Something was wrong with their boy, but the doctors couldn't explain it, just like what will happen to Dre. So Bernice, a self-described apostle, was tasked with performing something called a deliverance, which she notes is different than an exorcism. Whereby an exorcism requires an intercessor, someone like a priest who prays on behalf of the possessed, Bernice believes if she acts on behalf of Christ himself, using his authority, that can be enough to expel the demon.
If you act in the power and the authority of Jesus Christ, you can touch a body and the demon will run.
Bernice's deliverance of this boy was unsuccessful, with her later claiming it was her fear of the demon that led to this failure. A few days later, the mother of this family would become possessed and kill her entire family with an axe. Now Bernice keeps watch over the place, hoping the same fate won't befall anyone else. What's creepier is that this family's boy's name was Trey, the same name as Dre's imaginary friend. So it looks like whatever demon had control over this family has now taken over Ebony's son. This backstory never happened in the real-life version. The landlord of the supposed haunted house in Indiana stated that he had never experienced any supernatural events, nor did any of his prior tenants. In fact, the real woman was behind on the lease and potentially used these claims of paranormal activity as an excuse not to pay. Back to the movie, we're introduced to Department of Child Services agent Cynthia, and she's gotta be one of the worst DCS agents ever, letting Ebony keep her children even after visiting the home and seeing these kids with tons of bruises. Cynthia has her own little backstory. Her son was struck and killed by a car after she left him unattended. Thus, she devotes her life to the protection of kids as a way to redeem herself. The film does a very poor job at explaining just how this demon works. It possesses Dre but never explains how it can simultaneously take control of her brother and sister. This possession seeps into their everyday life as all three children experience a breakdown so big at school that if it were to happen to me, I'd switch schools immediately.
Doctor, my son ate his own shit today.
Yeah, if I was known as the kid who ate his own shit, you'd best believe I'd be moving to a different state. Now, you'd think this would be enough for child services to take away her kids, but no, that only happens after Ebony nearly kills them all by driving into a truck, later stumbling into a nearby diner claiming something is trying to kill her kids. In the real-life version, the brunt of the possession happens to the mother, LaToya. She, like Ebony, is given all sorts of tests and eventually has her children taken from her by protective services. In the movie, Ebony's mother is played by Glenn Close, however, in real life, her mother was neither white nor dies 2/3 of the way through the movie after being attacked by a demon. According to Bernice, this demon preys on the weak, and the weakest of them just happens to be Ebony's youngest child. Now, there is an account of a nurse at this hospital actually seeing the kid walking up a wall, but none of it can be corroborated. There's even an account of the daughter levitating in bed during a sleepover, but no one other than the family can substantiate it. In real life, there is no Bernice character, rather LaToya enlists the help of a priest named Father Michael Maginot, who performed 3 separate exorcisms on her, all of them performed at his church. Now, the entire third act of the movie, where Ebony kidnaps her son from the hospital to perform an exorcism on him, is also fabricated. But that's where the bulk of the film's action and horror takes place. With her son in chains, Bernice starts her deliverance and warns Ebony that the demon can take the form of any of her loved ones in an effort to deceive her. And that's exactly what this demon does, morphing into her mother and spewing some of the most hate-filled comments I haven't heard since middle school. But this demon is insanely powerful, breaking from its chains and lifting Bernice up from the ground. But before she dies, she tells Ebony the only way to defeat this demon is to not doubt yourself and have no fear. So not only can this demon take control of your body, forcing you to smash your own head into the ground, but it can also teleport and dislocate your bones telepathically. In fact, it's so strong it actually kills Ebony, where she gets teleported to this sort of limbo where she hears the voice of her dead mother tell her she can talk to God. And then somehow she comes back alive with the power of God and rebukes the demon, her body given over to God as she begins to speak in tongues, letting the Holy Spirit take over. The demon spontaneously erupts into flames and is cast into the hole from which it came in the basement floor. Her son is returned and back to normal. We catch up with Ebony a few days later, and it looks like she just got out of a marriage with Mike Tyson. She's packing up to leave as Cynthia, the child services agent, tells her they got a battle ahead of them in terms of getting back custody of her kids. And just like in the movie, LaToya does eventually get her kids back, and after they moved, no further demonic experiences occurred. In the film, they end up moving to Philadelphia, and in real life, they settled in Indianapolis. But what did you think of the movie and the real-life story it was based on? Is this a true case of demonic entity, or are we dealing with a woman who just didn't want to pay her bills? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember...
Doctor, my son ate his own shit today.